Vakar hugged Camus Morgi, and not long after, the demon took control of her body and mentioned that she was delighted to meet him. Sarah was somewhat surprised to see Vakar, revealing that she had heard a lot about him from her roommate. The eyes of our boy began to shine with fury and his gaze fixed on her. The spikes had pierced Vakar's body, leaving him seriously injured, but even so he remained calm and questioned what she had done to Camus Morg. Sarah's attention focused on Vakar and her eyes began to shine with contempt. With a smile she asked if Vakar was worried about Camus Morg. The eye that Sarah had on her forehead began to show Camus Morgi trapped inside her body. The demon's eyes expanded with evil, and with a smile, she revealed that Camus Morgi was sleeping deeply inside her, since she had the right to take over her body for one day. She mocked our boy, asking how long he thought he would keep hugging her. Sarah used her powers, and in the blink of an eye, several skeletons wielding spears appeared above them, ready to attack. Vakar raised his head and his attention fixed on them, seeing that the skeletons were ready to attack. He could not help but go on alert. The skeletons attacked fiercely using the spears, but just before the attack could connect, Vakar stopped hugging Camus Morg, jumped and landed far from the area, dodging the attack at the last second. Sarah stood up and began to observe Vakar in silence. While the demon's eyes were glowing, she touched the bodies of the skeletons, making them turn into ashes. With a demonic smile, she mentioned that they were inside Andromalia's exclusive trap. Realizing that Vakar was the one who had killed her comrade, she couldn't believe that the guy Camus was looking for was that demon hunter. She started touching her chin with her hand, began to gaze toward the sky, and her eyes widened in confusion. For her it was strange, since she didn't know how there could be a person who knew so much about them, the 10 elite corpses. Sarah extended her hands and began to walk toward our boy, remembering that he had a soul that not even she had been able to find with her demonic eye. She did not know if Vakar was really from this world. Vakar, who had his hand resting on the ground, began to observe her in silence and did not say a single word. Upon noticing Vakar's silence, a smile spread across Sarah's face. According to her, he was a cold man, so she assumed he would respond if she told him the pitiful stories of Camus Morg. In an instant, the wounds that the spikes had left on Vakar's body disappeared as if nothing had happened. Vakar began to stare at the demon with a gaze full of fury. Sarah revealed that to see a man, Camus Morgi dabbled in the forbidden spell of complete resurrection. She explained that Camus Morgi had failed, resulting in her being unable to move her body. In the destroyed room, she remained lying on the floor for several days. She had already tried everything and no longer had the will to live. The demon asked if Vakar wanted to know something funny. Sarah's eyes began to shine with evil, and with an arrogant smile, she began pointing at herself, revealing that just before she could die, a demon appeared to give her new hope. Upon hearing this, Vakar's eyes began to shine with hatred and rage. Sarah mocked him, saying that after forming the contract, it had been heartbreaking to hear Camus Morgi long for him. Vakar began to imagine Camus Morgi thrown on her knees with her hands on her head and crying. She regretted having sent him away alone, her eyes filled with tears and guilt, since if only she hadn't been captured by the barbarians, none of this would have happened. She wished she had died instead of Vakar. While her body was lying on the ground, she couldn't help but wonder why Vakar hadn't come to see her, begging not to be left alone. With a smile, the demon began to imitate Camus Morgi's voice, saying that she missed him. Consumed by hatred, Vakar drew his sword and lunged at her, seeing that he was ready to attack. Sarah extended her hands and a smile appeared on her face. With a cold gaze, Vakar swung his sword forcefully, but just before the sword could harm her, Vakar stopped. Vakar's attention was fixed on the sword and her eyes began to shine with joy. With an arrogant smile, she realized that Vakar was well versed in contracts formed with demons. If she died, Camus Morgi would also die. Sarah activated the magic circle that was on the ground, causing an undead to emerge from it, which opened its mouth and prepared to devour Vakar. She was confident that Vakar could not kill the girl who was desperately waiting for him. The undead closed its jaw, but Vakar reacted in time and with a jump dodged the attack. Then he began to gaze toward the ground with a furious expression and prepared to counterattack. Our boy approached the undead and launched a chain of powerful slashes, but to his surprise, His attacks didn't work. Seeing this, Vikar couldn't help but feel somewhat confused, while Sarah's eyes were shining with excitement. With a smile, she asked if Vikar believed that she was going to use magic he could cut like Camus magic, revealing that there was no way a simple graduator could stand against her true power. The undead gained momentum and struck Vikar hard using its jaw. The attack was so powerful that our boy couldn't move. The undead took advantage and began running quickly, slamming Vikar's body against the ground. Using all its strength, the undead smashed Vikar's body against the sword's statue. The attack was so powerful that the statue of the sword cracked and blood began to emerge again from Vikar's wounds. Sarah mocked him, saying that far from saving her, he was going to end up dying. Vikar, who was wounded, began to gaze toward the ground and did not move. The memories of when he had fought against the spider, Madam, came to Vikar's mind. Even though she was a powerful beast, Vikar drew his sword and prepared to fight. He could not believe that Camus Morg had made a contract with the demon to save him. Realizing that hiding in the deep forest had caused Camus Morgu's future as a hero to transform into that of a contractor of the demon, he began imagining a knight killing a man. Knowing that in order to kill a demon who had made a contract with a human, one must first kill the human who had made the contract. This was something he knew from the beginning. The eyes of our boy began to shine with fury and his gaze fixed on Sarah. He didn't know why he had said that. He was determined not to lose against a demon. While he was sunk in his thoughts, Sarah's tail wrapped around Vikar's foot. Vikar didn't move. Using her tail, Sarah lifted Vikar's foot and noticed that he was thinking too much while fighting. Her eyes began to shine with rage, and without wasting another second, she forcefully moved her tail, making Vikar's body shoot out and crash into one of the statues. The impact was so strong that cracks appeared in the statue. Despite being injured, Vikar clenched his fists and began to imagine a scale. On one side was Camus Morgu and on the other her family and the barbarians. Vikar knew that if he didn't kill the 10 elite corpses, humanity would face the time of downfall. It was either Camus Morgu or all of humanity. It was clear to Vikar which of the two options he had to choose. The sad memories of Camus Morgu's life flooded Vikar's mind, making his eyes begin to shine with hope. He began to pant heavily since if there was even a silver of hope, he wanted to cling to it. Sarah climbed onto the palm of an undead and approached Vikar, who had his body crashed against the statue. She couldn't believe that the 9th and 10th elite corpses had been defeated by a human who wasn't even that strong. Sarah's eyes began to shine with evil. Using her sharp claw, she prepared to attack, asking if Vikar was aware that he was the reason for the delay in opening the door to the demonic realm. Vikar had no strength to react to the attack and could not even move. Sarah attacked with all her strength, making her claw pierce through Vikar's chest, destroying the statue into pieces in the process. Smoke began to emerge from the area. The demon drove her claw even deeper into Vikar's chest, causing him to open his mouth and start screaming in agony. With his body trembling, Vikar tried to move his hand. Sarah felt furious upon seeing that Vikar was still thinking about saving Camus, when he was just an insignificant graduate who couldn't even defeat her. Her eyes began to shine with evil and an arrogant smile appeared on her face, since after all Vikar was just a pathetic human waiting for a miracle to happen. Upon hearing the word miracle, Vikar began to think, and not long after he extended his hands and grabbed the demon's horns. Seeing this, Sarah's eyes widened in surprise and confusion. Vikar clenched his teeth tightly and mentioned that he liked the sound of that. Sarah's attention was fixed on him, and she couldn't help but go into shock. Just before she could take another breath, Vikar gave her a strong headbutt. The blow was so strong that Sarah's body began to tremble and her eyes started to shine with fear, causing her jaw to drop. Vikar gave the demon another headbutt, clenched his teeth and asked if Camus Morg could hear him. Sarah had her claw stuck in Vikar's chest. Our boy tightly grabbed the demon's horns and mentioned that it was hard for him to cut down this demon and save them all by himself. Vikar's voice began to sound until it reached Camus Morg, who was sleeping inside the demon. Our boy begged her to resist the contract since her contract with the demon, which was binding her soul, was not absolute. He trusted that she could do it since she was skilled in magic. Camus Morg, whose body was bound, did not wake up. Vikar revealed that her soul would burn his payment for going against the contract, but he was going to kill Ser at that very moment. With eyes shining with determination, Vikar began to shout, swearing that together they were going to create a miracle. Ser's attention fixed on him, and her eyes widened in fury. Consumed by rage, she pulled her claw out of Vikar's chest and gave him a powerful kick, making his body fly away. Our boy's body began to bounce on the ground until it crashed hard against another of the statues. Vikar descended to the ground and decided to turn Vikar into an undead soldier. She swore to make him work to cover for the 9th and 10th corpse and destroy humanity. She extended her hands and began to walk toward our boy. Vikar also descended to the ground and placed his hand on it. He stood up, and while he was wiping the blood from his chest, he swore to kill her. Vikar began to gaze at the ground and couldn't help but imagine the letter he had received. For him it was strange to think that the content of that letter, which he had believed was unreliable, would be his only hope now. With his body full of wounds, Vikar drew his sword and began to walk toward the demon. Our boy's attention was fixed on the statue of Hugo. He would have never thought that Hugo Le Baskerville would help him in this life. The demon Ser showed her true form. With a furious gaze, she drew her scythe and gave Vikar the order to die. Vikar began to stare at her intently, clenched his fist tightly, and his eyes began to shine with determination. He had never expected that he would become a swordmaster. Vikar could see Ser, who was tied inside the third eye of the demon. He began to observe her carefully, vowing to protect her. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,